So, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. Uh, I hope you can hear me. Please, can you hear me? Of course, as I said, today we are going to look at the solution to biostatistics first question paper. Francis, please, can you hear me? Francis, is the both also my voice at the same time? Can you hear me and can you also see the boat? Francis, can you hear me and can you also see the boat? Solution to first question. Hello, can you hear me and can you also see the board? Okay, so good. So without wasting our time, I'm now going to share the first question paper that we are going to solve. So let me share the question paper that we are going to solve. So that at least you will see the questions one after the other and would be following them. So this is the question paper that we are going to solve. So I hope from here you can see the question paper very well. So whenever you are going to write a question like this, you need to see for each questions a number of allocated to each and every questions. It is very important to do that whenever you are doing any examination, because doing that will guide you on how to attempt some of these questions. So you see the question one says, briefly explain sample as a fraction of a population. Briefly explain sample as a fraction of population. So let me start. What do you understand sample? That is the first thing to start with. What is sampling? So I actually want you to understand something in statistics. When you are doing statistics, so the first question is asking about sampling or sample. Let me start with sample. So after defining the sample, then we are going to look at the, so you see the first question says, explain or briefly explain sample as a fraction of population. So you see from here, if you can be able to define this sample very well, you have 2.5 marks. 2.5 marks. So these are some of the things that you need to be seeing. You see, so, for questions, try to understand the number of marks allocated for each and every question. So what is a sample? So generally, I just want to start by laying foundation. Generally, one of the importance of statistics is that whenever you are doing statistics, you should understand that if you are doing any kind of prevalence studies, you cannot work with the entire population. Let's see here in Nigeria. We know that in Nigeria there are over 220 million people. There are over 200 peoples in Nigeria. So if you are going to do any kind of study, you cannot work in with entire population of Nigeria. You cannot work with the entire population of Nigeria. So that is the importance of sample or sampling. So what is sampling? A sampling is a process of selecting a representative subset. Let me write it because I want you to understand the concept. A sample, a sample is a process, or let me start with sampling. What is sampling? Sampling is the process of selecting is a process of selecting a representative subset in bracket is called sample from a large from a larger group of population. So I think I just want to give you a clear concept of this sampling. So generally in biostatistics is that when you are going to do any kind of studies, you cannot work with the entire population. Like as I said, in Nigeria, there are over 220 millions people. So let's assume now you want to see maybe a new drugs had been developed, for the treatment of diabetes. Let's say the name of the drugs is drug E. The names of the drugs is called drugs E, and you want to see if this drug is toxic to a Nigerian population. So get the point, ladies and gentlemen. You have a new drugs discovered for the treatment of diabetes, but you don't know whether this drug is toxic to Nigerian population. So what do? Can you work with all these 220 million people in Nigeria? That is a question that I want you to answer. You have a new drug which is called drugs A, and you want to test whether this drugs A, and you want to try and see if this drugs A, you want to try and see if this drugs A is toxic among Nigerian population. So what do? Can you work? Can you test these drugs among the 220 million individuals? That is the question that I want to ask you. I want the class to be more of interactive. This is the right time for you to understand all these costs so that at least basic explanation of each and everything that we are going to do here. So now the question is, you have a new drugs A discovered, and this drugs A, you want to test it among individuals you want to test whether these drugs is toxic among Nigerian population. And in Nigeria, we have over 220 million people. Can you test these drugs among all this population? The answer is no. Excellent. So you cannot test these drugs among the 220 million people. So that is why you are doing sampling. That is why sampling. Let's say you have the following as your population. Please look at it very well. Let's say you have the followings as the population in Nigeria. All these are the populations in Nigeria. Look at it. This is a population of Nigeria. But the truth is that you cannot work with the whole these individuals. So what we are going to do is to do sampling. So what is sampling? Sampling is the process of selecting a representative. So rather to work with the whole of this, rather to work with the whole of this population, what are you going to do? You are going to do sampling. So what is sampling? A sampling is a process of selecting. So the process that you are going to use, because you cannot work with this entire population, rather you will select some of these numbers or some of this population. Maybe instead of working with 220 million individuals, maybe you'll end up of working with, let's say, 300 and, or let's say maybe 400 peoples, 400 people. So instead of working with about 220 million individuals, so you end up of working with these 400 people. So the number of individuals that are selected from this entire population that are going to use for the study is called sample. So this is the sample. So the process of selecting these numbers or these 400 people from the entire population of Nigeria is what we call sampling. Please, do you understand the meaning of sampling? So now, sampling is different from sample. So there are three things here that you need to understand. Sampling, that is number one. Second, population, and then sample. So what is sample? A sample, a sample is a representative or is a subset of a population that used for the study. Please get it. It is a representative or is a subset from a larger population for your that use for the study. While sampling, it is the process that used for the selection of the sample, while the population is the entire individuals, is the entire individuals, is the entire individuals in a population, sorry, in a community. So that is the difference between sampling, and population. And we have different types of sampling. We have different types of sampling. So please, who can tell me what are the different types of sampling? What are the different types of sampling? Yes, I need answer. What are the different types of sampling? No, Queen, before we go, no. These are not, those ones are not the types of sampling. They are excellent. And Nancy, Kocha. We have probability and non-probability sampling. We have probability and non-probability sampling. So these are the types of sampling. Although actually what we are heading to, but all this, I just want to tell you exactly how you are going to do to earn this 2.5 marks. So what is sampling? We have probability, and two, we have non-probability sampling. So these are the types of sampling. We have probability sampling and we have non-probability sampling. So what is probability sampling? I'm just trying. Okay, so we are coming back. So as I said, this is probability sampling and we have non-probability sampling. So what is probability sampling? In the case of probability sampling is a types of sampling techniques in which each and every member of the population have equal chance of being selected. Like for example, this is a population. So in this population, because we are talking about that in a statistic, you cannot work with the entire population, rather you work with a sample. So how do you select samples? The process of selecting sample is called sampling, and this sampling is divided into two. We have probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So assuming now those people that are going to do that studies, they will just come to Nigeria. So in the case of probability sampling, so once they enter the Nigeria, it means that each and every member in a population, whether you are a male, whether you are not, whether you are a female, whether you are a child, whether you are an old man or an old individual, it means that you have an equal chance of being selected because you are not biased. You didn't define the element or the individual that you are going to select in that population. So in the case of probability sampling, it's a types of sampling techniques in which each and every member in the population have an equal chance of being selected. But in the case of non-probability sampling, it's a type of probability sampling where there is a bias. There is a bias. You always introduce a bias. Like for example, let's say, okay, when you come to the population and you want to select the individual that you are going to work with. Sorry, when you want to do this, so you want to work with a male, or you want to work with an old man. So it means that you define, you already have a choice. So it means that there is a bias. So this is actually the difference between probability and non-probability sampling. Please let me repeat myself. As from this time around, I don't want any one of you to tell me that you have a problem with sampling. Sample is an element that you select, or is a subset that you select from a population, because you cannot work with the entire population. The example here is that, okay, this is a new drug A, and it is meant for the curing of diabetes, but you don't know whether this drug is toxic among Nigerian population or not. So what do? The next thing that you are going to do now is to take this drug and test it among the healthy volunteers or among the Nigerian population. So in Nigeria, we have over 220 million individuals, and you cannot work with 220 million individuals. So what do? Then you do sampling. That is, you select subset or representatives from that population. So the representatives that you are going to use for your study is called sample. And how do you do this sampling? You do sampling. Sorry. How do you select this sample? You select these samples based on sampling. So what is sampling? A sampling is the process of selecting a representative. So the process that you are going to use to select a representative subset, that is a sample, or the process of selecting sample from a larger population, is what you call sampling. And what are the types of sampling? We have two. We have probability sampling and we have non-probability sampling. So what is probability sampling? A probability sampling is a type of sampling techniques in which each and every individual in a population have an equal chance of being selected. So that is why it is like by random. You just come to the population. Once you come to the Nigeria, then any individual that you come across, then you select it and then you test your drugs. That is an equal chance of being selected. Let's assume now you want to, okay, test the performance of student in a class. So when you come to the class, you will not start saying, okay, who is the most intelligent student? You want to test them. You want to test their intelligence. You want to check whether they're intelligent or they are not intelligent. So if you start by saying that, okay, you want to know who are the intelligent student, and you want to select them. So if you do that, it means you do non-probability sampling because you introduce bias. You have a target individual that you want to select. So that is non-probability sampling. But in the case of probability sampling, you will just come to the class and then you select any members or any members of the class. Then you test them. Then from there, you will see that whether they are intelligent or they are non-intelligent. So that is the probability. It means that. So what I am asking now, can we look at the different types of probability sampling and non-probability sampling, or we should move to the next question? I always prefer to solve questions so that at least, like for example, after solving this, then anytime you see questions on sampling, then you will be able to address them. So now the question is, can we look at the different types of probability sampling to mention them, and then the types of non-probability sampling? So what do we do? Or we should move to the next question. Next questions, or we should look at these two types of sampling. Please answer me. Okay, I said in the case of non-probability sampling is a type of sampling in which you have your targets. You go to the field and then you go to the targets, meaning that you go with bias, you introduce bias. Let's say, okay, when you go to the class and you want to conduct you want to see whether you want to test the performance of student. You want to test the performance of a student from a particular class. And then you just enter the class and ask who are the good students from the class. So you introduce bias. So that is non-probability sampling. It always introduce bias and it's not reliable. So that is why it's not advisable to always use, even if in a study or in the kind of any reports that you are going to do in the hospital, one that always produce a better data. So that is the difference between the two. So I think what I'm going to do, although I have a video, on this sampling. I have a videos on sampling, but let me just briefly look at the at least even to mention the different types of probability sampling, so that at least whenever it comes to this, you will be able to know that okay, this is probability and this is non-probability. So actually starting with probability sampling. So now we are going to look at the types of probability sampling. We can continue because I have a video on the different types of this probability sampling. So we have what we call simple random sampling. Simple random sampling, and then we have systematic. We have systematic. We have systematic sampling. And then number 3, we have what you call stratified sampling. We have stratified sampling. And then number 4, we have cluster sampling. So I actually don't want to go deep to explain each and every one of this, but I want you to understand that these are the types of the probability sampling. And of course, we are going to, maybe after this, I'm going to send you videos on this sampling so that at least you will understand the difference of each and every one of this and how you apply them in statistics, because I don't want to waste much time here. So we have simple random sampling, we have systematic sampling, we have stratified sampling, and then we have cluster sampling. So at least at this point, know that at least at this point you know the type, you know the definition of sampling, you know the definition of sample, you know the So that is what I want you to understand at this point. So understand that we have these are the different types of probability sampling. We have simple random systematic sampling, we have stratified sampling, and then cluster sampling. Then under non-probability sampling, and I also want you to go with this, that under non-probability sampling, we have convenience. We have convenience. We have convenience. Okay, welcome back. Please, sorry for network problem. So, of course, under non-probability sampling, we have convenience sampling, we have snowball sampling, and then we have quarter sampling, and then the last one we have purposive sampling. So, of course, we have four types of probability sampling, and we have four non-probability sampling. So, these are the different types of sampling techniques that we have. So for probability we have four, and then we have non-probability we have four. So this is what I want you to understand at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Is that clear? So now let's look at the next question. I think from here we have actually tried. So let's look at another question. So the next question says, highlight 5 reasons biostatistic is important to you as a nurse. So you need to give like hello, can you hear me?